Welcome to Cannabis Roundup, presented by Outlaw Technology. I'm Hans Dietrich.
And I'm Brie, and each week we speak with the companies in the trenches of the seed-to-sale process.
And today our guest is Amanda Getchell Stevenson, Director of Sales and Marketing for Terra Vera. Hey, Amanda, so great to meet you and welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to learn about you and about Terra Vera. As you probably know, we're from a different side of the industry, but so we don't really know much at all about Terra Vera, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners do. But for those who don't, we're going to find out everything we can. So to get started, we'd first like, though, to learn a little bit about you and your background and how you got into cannabis, your relationship to the plant, etc.
I was just reflecting on that. I have actually been working in the cannabis industry since 2018. I came out of the startup industry here in New Mexico and then joined a multi-state operating company in 2018 and got to work with a few different states and see the up-and-coming industry, and it was really exciting. And having a marketing background, I was excited to market something that wasn't traditionally marketed before, so had a lot of fun with learning kind of the Wild West of the cannabis marketing world. So
what kind of jobs did you have? What did you do at the MSO? Marketing still?
Yep. I was digital marketing manager, and I worked with a few different states. So that was pretty interesting because every state has different rules and regulations. And, and then you're also following the umbrella regulations of the federal government. So, working with Facebook and Meta, it wasn't Meta at the time, but Facebook mostly had a lot of restrictions. So it was a lot of figuring out loopholes in how you can get the word out about your business.
We need to talk with you because we're having some issues there ourselves, as I think many, many, many people in this industry still are. Terra Vera, you're doing the marketing and you're director of sales there as well. But what does Terra Vera do?
So we are a technology company, and what we have created is an active, sustainable chemical solution that combats pathogens, disease, pests, and it all uses a chemistry that mimics mammals' natural immune response. So it sounds like a mouthful. It sounds, really sciencey, and it is to an extent, but ultimately our founders created this solution that just the same way you and I, if we get sick, our bodies just naturally create antibodies to kick the disease so we can start getting healthier. So they found some of in the combination of amino acids and salts, we can then apply to crops, specifically cannabis, and combat against some of the diseases that impact the plant. So it's a really cool, unique solution that hasn't really been done before. So that's pretty much what it is in a gist.
So more so natural immunity mimicking versus, what we're used to more traditionally, like pesticides and more reactive.
Exactly. So we like to say there's no harsh chemicals or synthetic ingredients like you see in fertilizers and traditional pesticides. So it's completely sustainable and safe. So you can actually, you can use it in your house. You can use it without wearing PPE, use it around animals, kids, whatever. So
that's huge.
It's really, really big. Yeah, we're excited to see what else it can do.
Yeah, that is big. I think I thought I read something about how a lot of people in our industry actually do end up getting sick from a lot of the products that are used.
Yes. And one of the reasons our founders created this company was the risk to the end user. So, you're sparing these crops with, all of these terrible, terrible chemicals and pesticides. Poison. And then someone is, they're drying it out, then they're going to smoke it and they're lighting it up. And, who knows what has been sprayed on this plant. And now you're ingesting it and it's going into your lungs. Who knows what it's going to do to your body. So similar to the food industry, where we've seen a big trend of people moving towards organic products because we are starting to see the long-term effects on our health from these pesticides and fertilizers. So it's really the same thing, but we were seeing that with cannabis. And because it's, semi-regulated, depending on state to state, there really wasn't a solution. So that's where we came in.
Excellent. how long you've been around, how long you've been doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're relatively new. We were founded in 2019, 2020 area. So right when the pandemic hit, that was when most of our team was leaving the cannabis side of things and started Terra Vera and joined up with a few members that they had worked with before in other industries, specifically in the like chemistry and water treatment space. Relatively new. Yeah, we still are pretty much considered a startup, but moving fast. So
How many states are you in now?
we are adding new states every day. So it really depends. It's kind of a hard way for us to go about it because of the regulations in each state. So some states require you to be registered as a pesticide. Some require you to be a nutrient. So we're kind of working with that to see how we can get a broad application to everybody, but pretty much on a state-by-state basis, depending on where the customer is coming from, we work with that state to get approved.
Now, Amanda, I'm curious, our side is more data collection. So I myself don't have a lot of experience with, state regulations when it comes to supplements for plants. But when you guys are looking at new states, new customers, and new markets, are you seeing kind of consistent regulations across the states as to what's allowed and what's not allowed? Are there certain states that you guys are encountering where they are kind of more stringent than others? What's been your experience?
Good question.
Yeah. I think it has been varying state to state. Some states are pretty easy, just a form we can fill out. We work with the state and then we kind of go through that. But the other states, we've kind of had to jump through a few hoops and, prove what our solution can do and that it's not harmful. And then, of course, we're going up against some of the biggest companies, in the pesticide and fertilizer industry. And
Sure.
That's also, I think, been a little bit of a barrier, is that there's a lot of money behind some of these companies that probably don't want a solution like ours to be on the market.
Is your solution more affordable than the traditional ones, the pesticides, the poisons that are out there?
Yeah, so we are still working on figuring out the scalability of our solution, but so far what we've seen, it is comparable in price to some of these harsher chemicals that people are using, especially at these large-scale farms and agricultural spaces. So how it works is we put the salts and amino acids in a dry form and then send it to the customer, and then they use their own water on site to then generate the solution. So how we are saving people costs and just saving carbon footprint space is we're not shipping these huge barrels of solution that is mostly water. Yeah, exactly. The cost is saving in not just the cost of the solution, but the cost of shipping, storing, application time, labor costs. We have a lot of ways that we're finding that we are saving organizations money.
And, it's an investment into the product. There might be cheaper products out there that say they do the same thing, but anyone who's ever run into trouble with the laboratories knows that something that doesn't do what it says or doesn't show up in the test the way it's supposed to, that can really destroy your company. We've seen it with folks where we had a customer in one state where they were on probation, so to speak, because they had used an unapproved product to treat their plants. It was something crazy where just a couple of months later, the state that approved that specific product, and they were still on the hook for, violating that.
They borrowed a harvester. And
that was right.
The people they borrowed it from had harvested plants, and maybe they weren't licensed, that had pesticide on it. They were completely organic, this farm, but because there were traces still on the harvester, when it went to the lab, that whole harvest was like quarantined for 2 years, and that was their first one, a big one. They were an outdoor grower. Bad stuff can happen. So going back to Brie's question before, in other states, are some of these things allowed that then labs test for in certain states and they're not allowed? It sounds like it's all over the map.
Yeah, it really is. And that's one of the things that when we first got started, really looked at was the lab testing. And people are doing all kinds of stuff to get around passing their tests, whether it's, throwing out crops or who knows what they're doing. So with our solution, there's no residuals left that would harm your test results. So we've seen a pass rate go up to 100% in almost all of our cases. Yeah, because it's all organic and it's all a natural solution. So it's kind of crazy to see some of these businesses just lose so much. Yeah, because they're trying to solve a solution. They kind of find something that will put a Band-Aid on the solution, like a unapproved solution. So that's where we come in and, again, we have to work with the state because we don't want anyone to get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, working in cannabis since, 2018 it's the sort of thing where we've got, young industry, we've got new companies, we've got folks who win their licenses through lotteries and, they're kind of doing this mass agricultural production at scale for the very first time. And it is hard to kind of, we all see people kind of go through the same cycle of kind of learning the pain points, kind of learning their lessons after those first harvests, after those second harvests. And look, it comes down to if you produce your product with the best supplements out there, with the organic items, with the items that are safer, you get to more so utilize the flower of the product. We've all seen folks where they say, we don't care about the powdery mildew because we're just going to oil it, process it, and then problem solved. Yep. But again, we all know the premium product in a lot of our markets is going to be flower.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even the oil treatments, they come in contact with fire. So you're lighting it up, then becomes, a carcinogen or something that can harm your lungs long term. So the oil treatments like the neem oil and things like that people have been using in the past are actually, even though they're, all natural ingredients, they are still harmful when they are combined with fire and consumed. So that's another concern that we've seen is, why don't we just use neem oil? And really, that's kind of like another Band-Aid that doesn't really solve the root problem. And another thing about our solution too is you can use it throughout the plant process. So from seed, we say from seed to flower, but really you can use it. Like we've even had some customers use it post-harvest and dip their plants in the solution just as a very last precautionary way to make sure that there's no residuals or no bacteria on their crops.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's really interesting. Now, I understand that you also you help cultivators increase their productivity, profitability, competitiveness. Is that something that you do?
I mean, we have a really great team that has a lot of experience. So in the cannabis industry specifically. So we've kind of been tying that into our solution. So in the profitability space, that was one of the things, with the failed test rates, we were looking at that. And then just what are the reasons that, as the cannabis space gets more competitive, what will make companies stand out? And looking at, cleaner products, sometimes that's not the motivator for these people. Like the bottom line is they want to make more money. So some of the ways that we've been able to prove that our solution is helping increase profits is it's a nutrient with the amino acids. Actually, we've seen up to a 40% increase in yield and biomass production. So the plants they're like bodybuilding supplements. He's like, they make these plants huge.
They're like steroids, but legal ones.
They are, yes, exactly. Steroids for plants. So it's really cool. So that, you're creating more product. You're losing less product due to failing, lab tests. And sometimes people are losing up to like 20 or 30% of their crop. So that's a huge amount of profit that they're losing just because they weren't able to treat whatever issue that they're facing.
More healthy plants, less ones that they have to cull.
Better yields.
So our solution actually, because it's formulated specifically for cannabis plants, we've seen that it can be used on really sensitive genetics. So people are able to grow more rare genetics, different kinds of cloning. The value adds to more rare genetics. So if you have a more rare flower that you're trying to sell, we can help with that. Really, the main thing that we've seen too is the labor costs that we're able to save. So you're not having to mask up PPE, the whole Tyvek suit. Your staff can go in and apply it, or we have a fogging system that is an automated application system. So you're saving labor costs. No, you're not having to have your staff go in on a regular basis and spot treat or or find the spots that they need to go. You can just have a regular schedule for this treatment to go out and use it as a preventative measure.
So you can go into a flower room without putting all this protective equipment.
Oh,
wow. That is actually huge.
It's really cool. Yeah. That's what a lot of people like about it, especially in some of our warmer states where we have customers, in Florida and some of the southern states, they're, treating throughout the year in the greenhouses where it's 100 degrees plus 100% humidity, whatever. They're like, I do not want to have to wear a full suit to go spray my plants with these chemicals.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. And it's like, yeah, but here I am in my house with my little toddler running around, and I'm using the same stuff spraying my house plants. So
I was going to ask you that. You can use this on any kind of plant.
Yep. You can use it on any. We've seen really good results on most crops. We're conducting a few studies on other crops, including strawberries, grapes, specifically wine grapes, coffee leaf. Yeah, we're finding that it works on almost everything. So anything that gets any kind of powdery mildew, plant disease or fungi, we can treat. And then also pests. That was the other thing that we found, is that our solution actually kills soft-bodied pests. So that's been kind of a cool thing, because people love to see those bugs die.
Sounds like a miracle solution.
It is, and that's the hard part.
So it obviously it sounds like it can be used in both indoor grows and outdoor grows. It doesn't matter, right?
The most efficacy we've seen has been in controlled environment agriculture spaces. So the indoor growers, just because they're able to control their environment, they don't have these outside stressors coming in. And then when you spray the solution, so anything that comes in contact with it is what will be affected. So you're wanting to make sure that you're getting under the leaves and on top of the leaves. So that's why we recommend fogging. So controlled environment spaces seem to have a better result for us.
But Terra Vera started primarily just cannabis, or also other, agricultural?
Yeah, we did just start in cannabis. So cannabis was kind of just from a lot of our team's experience where we wanted to start, because we kind of knew the industry and had some connections and some people who could test it out for us. So we started in cannabis, and as we've grown, we've had a demand from other industries as well, including like nurseries and other kinds of horticulture and edible crops too.
Yeah, I imagine the potential application for this would be massive. I mean, earlier, you mentioned grapes, obviously my two favorite things, wine grapes and cannabis. So
they go great together.
They sure do. So I'm curious, where do you guys see kind of Terra Vera expanding from here? Are you guys going to try to sort of really lock down in cannabis and then, of course, expand into those new markets as they come online? Or are you guys looking at maybe branching out into other sort of agricultural pursuits?
Of course, we have a big tie into cannabis, so we're not going anywhere. We'll continue to work with our customers and future customers in getting approved in these states, so we can help cannabis growers specifically all over the country and possibly all over the world. And then, we're looking at other industries as well, kind of seeing where the need is. And one of the biggest industries we've started working with, which I can't believe I haven't mentioned until now, actually beekeeping. So beekeepers are starting to use our product to combat the varroa mite and some of the other diseases that affect beehives.
That's
and
fantastic.
It's really kind of blowing me away, because our solution's like, it's a nutrient for the bees, but it also kills all of the diseases and the mites that are killing the beehives. So we're having some preliminary studies done with a few researchers and universities. So we're excited to release some of that later in the year.
That is actually huge. I mean,
yeah,
the bees are vital to life on this planet, right? And
exactly.
So the cannabis industry is going to save the world, basically, is what you're saying.
Pretty much. That's what we're hoping, is that we can get credit for saving the world.
I'm interested in how people contact you? They buy this? Is it through distributors, through partners? How do they get this miracle product?
Yeah, so you can buy directly from us at terravera.com. We have 3 different systems. We just created our smallest system that is for small or hobby-sized growers. That's called the TS. We have a TS, a TM, and a TL, kind of going inside the small, medium, large. And that one's the easiest to use. I mean, that's the one I have at my house. My mom even uses it because it's easy to use. You pour a packet, you pour your water, push a button, it activates it, and then you can spray your solution. We do also work with some distributors, and we've been adding more distributors this year. So one of our biggest partners that we've just added is Cultivation Structures. They consult on build-outs of greenhouses and controlled environment spaces. So they're another great resource. And the founder of that is also one of the founders of our company. His name is Darren Potter, and he's really well-renowned cannabis expert in the field. So we're happy to have him on the team.
So Amanda, when I was preparing for this, I was really interested in the fact that the core technology that Terra Vera uses was used by the United States Department of Defense and Department of Energy. What were they using it for?
Yeah, so I briefly touched on that at the beginning, but it's a huge part of our story. So our 2 founding members actually created a company before Terra Vera a while ago that was a water purification solution that was then adopted by the U.S. government. And it purified the water without using harsh chemicals like chlorine and other chemicals that can really cause long-term health effects with your breathing. And we know with some of the military groups, if they're in the water all the time, we've seen long-term effects of inhaling the chemicals that are traditionally used to treat pools. So the solution that they use the similar, or we're using the similar method that they did where they oxidize the water. And instead of us just oxidizing the water, we are adding nutrients. So we're purifying the water and adding the nutrients that the plants need. So just kind of adding on to the previous company, what they had founded.
Really interesting. It sounds like something every cannabis grower and every vegetable and fruit grower should probably be using. On that note, though, you gave us your website. Can you give that to us one more time? And also, what are your social media sites?
Our website is Terra Vera, TerraVera.com. And you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/TryTerraVera, and also on Instagram, also Try Terra Vera. And LinkedIn, we also share a lot of good stuff, and Twitter too. So we'd love to have you guys on our pages.
Absolutely. I'm sure many people will be going there after this. And as we warned you ahead of time, we end every episode by asking our guests the same question. So Brie, please do the honors.
Thank you, Hans. So Amanda, the world wants to know who your favorite outlaw is.
Well, that one was easy for me because I am from New Mexico. I had to choose Billy the Kid.
That's a popular one. That's a good
one. Is it? Okay. I was like, I feel, we have of course, everyone in New Mexico has a family member who was families or related to him or some sort or the other. So had to throw him in.
That's very cool. Well, thank you, Amanda, for being on our show. We really enjoyed having you here on Cannabis Roundup.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for having me. This was a lot of fun.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you have any questions you'd like us to ask about compliance, metric, automation, or anything related to cannabis, please email them to us at info@outlawtechnology.net. You can download past episodes of our program by going to outlawtechnology.net, cannabisradio.com, or the Cannabis Radio app for iTunes and Google Play, as well as subscribing to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, YouTube, and Spotify. Thanks for listening, and be well.